And welcome to Forte Catholic Radio. If you were listening last week, you know that my voice was a little out of it. It's almost back this week. I tried to defeat a sinus infection with no antibiotics.
Mm-hmm. Willpower.
Yeah. So just my doctor was like, you need to beat it just with over the counter and rest. So I did, and now I'm back, and I'm excited about today's episode. This episode is going to be surrounded by the Sullivan family. If you don't know who they are, yeah, there you go. So we've got Miss Allison Sullivan who's making noises. Hey, Allison, how are you?
Hi, Taylor.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. I was sitting around yesterday. Most of the time, I book my guests like 3 months in advance, right?
Uh-huh.
So in December, I had my guest booked for January, February, and March. Except for today. So I'm sitting around yesterday and I'm like, hey, I need a guest for tomorrow and I need 2 kids to play this game.
Right.
Like there's this Lenten trivia game that like if me and Mackenzie played it like we normally do, it probably wouldn't be as fun because we'd probably get all the answers. Maybe.
Well,
but she'd probably find some way to beat me or something. So I was like, I need kids to play this game. And
it's sweet of you to think of us. We're not Olympians. We're not nationally known apologists. We're not directors of movies.
Yeah, well.
So nice of you, Taylor. So generous.
Well, we all know how humble I am. So I won't take your compliment. It's how humble I am.
I knew you win. I knew you win.
Yeah, you say all these things, but your podcast is still better than mine, which is where we're going to be talking about that.
Right. Very devoted fan base.
Yeah, very devoted. You and all those women. So we'll talk about you. Well, enough of you. We'll get more of you in your podcast later. But we want to get to your kids. And talk about Lent, because welcome to everybody's first Forte Catholic of Lent, everybody.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Well, I think he still thinks he's here to talk about what a good football player he is, so I'm going to let you break it to him.
Yeah. So I asked, she's like, yeah, sure, I'll bring my son and his friend. And I asked them, when we were doing sound check before the show, I asked them if they had any idea what they got themselves into, and they both looked at me, and what did you say, guys? No.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, you said absolutely no. So
they were not fibbing.
What we're going to do is to kick off Lent. We're going to play this trivia game. And here's, you've heard of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, right? Have y'all heard of this TV show?
Yes.
Okay. Y'all are in, or we need to get your names first. Y'all are both in 3rd grade, right? So we're going to play the Lenten version of Are You Smarter Than the Third Grader?
Okay.
So y'all are going to be playing against each other for a prize that will be named later. And I want the audience to play against you to see, we'll see, I'll put out a poll after this to see how many of the audience got more points than either of you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before we get into it, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you and what's your favorite sport? No, don't do your last name. Well, I already said your last name. Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead and do your last name.
Okay. My name is Silas Sullivan, and my favorite sport is football.
Football? What position you want to play?
Quarterback.
Quarterback. All right. Who are you?
I'm Hunter Willett, and my favorite sport is football, and I want to play left guard.
Left guard, yeah. We worked that out before the show came on. So, Willett, that's your last? Yeah, okay. We have a dedicated fan of the show who's actually been on the show, Dean Willett, who's going to just absolutely love that you came on the show. So you better win, or I'm going to make fun of him because it's all his fault. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to ask you. Wait. Now I'm thinking your name's Dean. What's your name? Hunter. Okay. Hunter and Silas. So Silas, I'm going to go to you first. You get the chance to answer the first question. So here we go. First question of Lenten trivia, which, by the way, this is Mackenzie's game, who's sitting behind you. It says Advent trivia on the top, and then it's a bunch of Lent questions. She didn't change that on the thing. This is what happens when I don't do the show prep, when it's somebody else. Way to go. Assistant to the producer, Mackenzie knew. All right, Silas. What church season? By the way, you're both Catholic school students. You go to St. Joseph's here locally, so you should know these answers. Otherwise, people will doubt they're sending their tuition this month. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Okay. What church season comes before Easter?
Lent.
Lent. That is correct. Okay. I thought Sam was going to do the sound, but she's like, maybe I don't know the answer. So. All right. Silas has 1 point. What's your name? I'm just kidding. It's Hunter. Okay. Hunter, your question is, how many days are in Lent?
40?
40 days in Lent, which is interesting. There's an interesting talking point here, right? Because there's the whole ordeal of like you give something up for all of Lent. But there's actually like in the season from Ash Wednesday to Easter, there's more than 40 days because there's the Sundays, right? And there's this whole thing of like, do you give up something? I'm talking about giving up something as I'm watching producer Sam eat some kind of bunt cake or something. Apparently she didn't give up sweets. So yeah, but like there are 40 days in Lent. Did either of y'all give up anything for Lent? No, you didn't give up anything? No, good for you. I didn't either. Okay. Hunter, so I'm keeping points, right? I gave Silas 1 point. Hunter, I gave you, instead of writing 1, I wrote 40 because that was the answer. I'm not going to give you 40 points. I'm going to give you 1 point. All right. Good. Silas is about to revolt. Okay. What is the first day of Lent called, Silas?
Ash Wednesday.
That is correct. You got it right. All right, Hunter. What do we call the day we celebrate Jesus' resurrection? What's the day that we celebrate his resurrection?
Easter?
Yeah, Easter.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Silas wanted his chance to steal. If either of you get a question wrong, the other will have a chance to steal. And he almost stole. Silas is like raising his hand and waving it like crazy. All right. Silas, what is the church's liturgical color? What is the color for Lent?
Purple and white.
Purple is what we were looking for. Good job. What are the ashes, Hunter? What are the ashes that we receive on Ash Wednesday made of?
Palms?
Palms. You were correct. Struggled with knowing what the resurrection was, but he knows that the ashes are made of palms. Okay. Silas, we blank on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. What do we do?
Give up something?
Kind of. That's not what we're looking for. I'm going to have to go ahead and say that was incorrect. All right, you get a chance to steal. We blank on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday.
We don't eat meat.
Okay. I can't give you the point either, right? Because what we were looking for is fast.
What?
So there's this.
I think they both got it.
No.
What?
No. Okay. I'm not going to give. I'm not going to explain it right now. I'll explain it in 3 questions because there's a question that's coming up that if I explained that answer, it would give away the next answer. We'll come back to it. I promise.
What's the bah humbug?
The bah humbug. Allison, you don't have a mic, so you're not allowed to talk.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mom.
You have a whole segment to yourself in our next segment.
Yeah, Mom.
Stop talking. Okay. Yeah, Mom. Silas has all the power because he has a microphone. Silas, what have you wanted to say to your mother that you couldn't until now? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that. I can't protect you once you leave here. Okay. Who are we on now? Silas, we're on. Silas,
No,
we're on. Oh,
I
no.
just went, and
You
then
just
he
went.
tried to steal. And
Okay.
then
What's very honest of you, because I was going to ask you a question. Hunter, we receive ashes in the shape of what?
Crosses.
That's correct. That's what we're supposed to receive them as, right? Some of us get blobs. There's like a whole picture, like this picture on social media that's like some people get a cross, some people get a blob, some people get like a heart because it was Valentine's Day, you know, all kind of stuff, right? All right, Silas, you're behind, Silas.
What?
You're 1 behind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. What is the Sunday before Easter called? The Sunday before Easter has a specific name. What is it called? All right. Time limit.
I don't know.
You don't know? No. It is Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday. Okay. Here's the question that is going to answer the previous question that we struggled with, right? This is for Hunter, right? Hunter, there's a specific word that we as Catholics, you'll learn as you stay Catholic, we have some weird words that are just for Catholics, okay? We blank from meat on Ash Wednesday and Fridays of Lent.
We stay away.
Stay away. I'm going to go ahead and give that to you. I'm going to go ahead and give Silas, I'll give you a point too if you know the correct term. We blank from meat on Ash Wednesday and Fridays of Lent.
Cut?
Cut? We cut meat.
No.
We can't eat it, but we cut it.
Fast?
No. Okay, Sam's trying to help you. She got it wrong too. Okay, here's the technical terms. And here's for the adults, right? We abstain from meat. We abstain from meat. Yeah, abstain means Hunter. I gave you the point because it means like stay away from, right? Like we don't have meat on Ash Wednesday and Fridays of Lent. The previous question was we blank on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. That is fast. So the fasting, like when I was growing up, I wouldn't have known this question, right? The fasting is having one regular meal and in our other two meals, those two meals can't equal one full meal. It's the weirdest thing, right? Like you'll learn that being Catholic is weird, but it's totally the best. Okay. So we have these weird rules. It's like, don't eat meat or whatever. So that's what's going on. Okay. Who are we on now?
Me.
Silas, the day Jesus died is called what?
Easter?
The day Jesus
What? No.
died.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Ash Wednesday?
No. Good Friday. 3 days before Easter is Good Friday. I know it's confusing because he died, but we call it Good Friday because it's the day that he died for our sins. All right. Who's it? Hunter? Hunter, how did Jesus die?
He carried the cross up to the hill. Then and when he dropped it, he got whipped.
He got whipped, but how did he die?
He got nailed on the cross.
He got nailed on the cross. Silas, what is that called specifically?
What? Getting beat?
Right up into the microphone. What is being nailed to the cross? What is the technical term for
Crucified?
that? Crucified, right? I'm going to give you a bonus point for that one. So Silas has 4, Hunter has 6. We're wrapping this up. On Fridays in Lent, this is for you, Silas. On Fridays in Lent, we pray using the blank, which depict the passion of Christ. On Fridays in Lent, we pray using the blank, which depict the passion of Christ. You might do this as a family on Fridays. Sam, stop helping. All right, do you know, Hunter?
Go to church?
Go to church, but what do we specifically pray on Fridays in Lent? Yeah, Silas.
Our Father?
No, okay. It's the Stations of the Cross, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
Stations. You'd all do this
Dang
at
it.
school. Yeah, you're probably falling asleep. I just caught you. What is that? School bells? Okay.
No.
All right. I'm getting so confused now. Whose turn is it?
Mine.
Oh, yeah.
You just went.
Hunter's turn. Okay. Where was Jesus crucified? Where was Jesus?
Bethlehem?
No.
I don't know.
You don't know either?
Mm-mm.
Where Jesus was crucified was on Mount Calvary. Mount Calvary. These are
We
see-
did not. We
How
did
did
not.
we know that?
We did not learn that in religion.
Yet.
Well, your mom, Allison Sullivan, should have taught you, Silas.
Mom.
Yeah, Mom. It's all Allison's fault. We're
Yeah, it
gonna get
is.
on to Seth too. I mean, Dad.
Dad.
I mean, whatever you call him. Okay.
Dad.
Daddy-o. All right.
That's what Mom calls him.
All
Hello,
right.
Daddy-o.
Daddy-o.
Daddy.
All right. Whose turn is it? Y'all. This is crazy.
It's mine.
No,
Yeah,
it
I
isn't.
think it's Hunter's.
He just went.
He just went.
And then I tried to steal.
Where was
And then-
Jesus? Oh yeah, you're right. All right, Silas. Silas should be running this show.
Oh, yeah.
What day do we remember the Last Supper? What day in Lent do we remember the Last Supper? Allison didn't teach him
Last
this one
Supper?
either. Yeah, the Last Supper. What day in Lent?
Easter?
Nope.
Thursdays.
What Thursday? Allison, are you cheating?
No.
I think Allison's,
you are.
Allison's starting to mouth
You
the
s-
words
she said-
because she's looking like a bad mom. Okay, I'm about to take Silas. If your mom doesn't stop talking, I'm gonna take away all your points.
No, Mom.
All right, Hunter, do you know
He does not know.
what's the day? Remember the Last Supper?
The third Thursday?
The third. That's incorrect. It's Holy Thursday.
No.
Yeah. See, I feel like you know this stuff. You just got to think, man. Think.
We don't learn this in religion, though.
Well,
Not yet.
we
yet.
already got on to Miss Sullivan. We might need to write a letter to your religion teacher. Okay, I'm just kidding.
Mr. George.
Oh yeah.
Mr. George, he's a veteran.
I'm gonna get on to him. I know him. I'm friends with him. Okay.
You are?
Yeah. You are? Okay. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this segment. Okay. What do we call the
Whose
week?
turn is it?
I don't know.
I think it's mine.
Wait,
You went. No.
You
Oh no.
You said
It's
Thursday.
Hunter's turn. It's Hunter's turn. Okay. Hunter, what do we call the week before Easter? There's a specific name for the week before Easter. What do we call it? It's not Shark Week. What week is it? All right.
Wednesday?
Silas,
He
what
was
is it?
saying Wednesday.
No, I wasn't.
Silas, what do you think?
What is it? The week before
The-
Easter?
yeah, right into the microphone, dude.
Wednesday?
Right in through the microphone. What's the week called?
Ash Wednesday? No.
Wednesday's a day, dude. He was okay.
I said Ash.
Holy
I said Ash.
Holy Week.
Holy Week.
It
yes.
is not Halloween.
Hunter.
Holy Week.
Halloween.
You said Halloween.
I said Holy Week.
You said.
This is the first time I've had children on my show, and I don't. Y'all aren't doing well to make this happen again. I'm just kidding. I like you people. Okay, Silas, you're losing by 3 points, and we only have 30 seconds left. So we're gonna go ahead and say it, Hunter. Hunter, you have won. You have defeated the entire Sullivan family. Congratulations, you win. High fives all around. Silas, I'm sorry, buddy, but it's all your mom's fault. You can blame her for this. All right, guys, thank you so much. That was fun. That was new. We will be right back for an interview with an adult, Miss Allison Sullivan, to talk about her podcast. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. This is your host, Taylor Schroll. We are back with a guest who is dancing here in the studio. Her name is Allison Sullivan. Allison, how are you doing this
Hi,
evening?
Taylor.
How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so
Good.
glad to be here.
Good. Thanks for not answering the first question.
Oh,
How are you? Hi, Taylor.
Hi. I'm great.
You're
I'm
great.
great. I'm glad to be sitting here with you.
Yeah, so you're a return guest. We had you on
am.
a long time ago. I'm trying to find the episode you were on. I'll find it later.
I love that you can casually scroll through your phone while you are live on the air.
This isn't live. We could totally start over. if we
You
wanted
are
to.
a marvel, Taylor.
Yeah, I'm looking for you. But you came on when you were quote unquote just an author. You had written a book called,
Rock, paper, scissors.
which is on, you can find on Amazon. Go do that, right?
True.
We told
Thank
that
you.
whole story. You go listen to that episode if you want to find
Yeah.
it. But then you started this podcast.
I did.
And what is it called?
Sinner, Saint, Sister.
Sinner, Saint, Sister. So I told the
Yeah.
story on the air 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you've heard the story.
No.
That you just assumed that you haven't heard the story. You don't even know what story I'm going to tell.
Well, I haven't heard it if it's about me on your podcast.
No. It's not about you. So I was doing this Bible study on my YouVersion app,
Okay.
and it was about weight loss. It was
Okay.
like scriptures to like go along with like
Yeah.
you doing a weight loss plan, right? And I get to the end of the first day, and it says like, if you would like to join with other women who are into losing weight and the Lord, join this group. And I said, oh no, I've begun a women's
Oh.
weight loss Bible study.
Right.
So I had a choice to make, and I talked about this on the air. Like, I can either continue with this, or I can stop and never tell a soul about it. Right.
Yeah.
So I continued, and then got the courage to tell souls
On the radio.
about 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
So I have no shame. I listen to this Sinner Saint Sister podcast.
Yeah.
That is, it sounds like
Yes.
it's for women, right?
I mean, sister implies that, I suppose.
It does imply that.
But you know what, Taylor? It's for everyone. There's a little bit of something for everybody. So I'm glad that you kind of stretch your boundaries there.
Yeah, there really is.
Women's
So,
weight loss groups,
really?
women's podcasts.
Yeah, like
What else?
I'm going to be like disbanded from the Catholic Man Show. They're never going to let me back on after these last couple of weeks. But
I don't know. Maybe they should try it too.
But well, that's the challenge. We're going to call them out
Yes.
right here. Like they need to listen to Sinner Saint Sister,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll go from there.
I was going to say we could do a whole season of, Sinner Saint Brother, but no, we're keeping it just as it is, and we're going to make men stretch their limits.
You can't do that.
Why?
Because you already promised me that I could come on whenever you did Sinner Saint Brother, and I totally want to because I love the show. I listen to the show. I've been listening since day one, I think, because you told me about it, and I got to help you with it there at the beginning.
You've been so supportive.
Well,
I'm really appreciative.
As little as I like to show on the air, sometimes I'm a good person. Right?
You are.
So,
You're just so affirming, and you're like this podcasting wizard. And so I send you my SOSs and you send me your tips, and I'm just so glad for the partnership.
yeah, I'm not that much of a wizard. You're just 40, so being a millennial makes me think that
bad.
it's just, it's just like these normal things that I know how to do.
Right.
You're just like, you're amazing. I'm like, I'm
Wow.
really not, but it's nice to hear those words.
Right.
So,
Well, I will keep preaching them all day long, Taylor.
yeah, thank you. So it's
Sure.
fun. We have been talking throughout this whole ordeal of both of us starting our podcast,
Mhm.
and I really do enjoy your show. So why don't you
Thank
tell us,
you.
like, what is Sinner Saint Sister?
I love it so much. Here's the thing, Taylor. I was doing a lot of writing and I was doing a lot of speaking, and I love those things and I will do them when, I feel the tug of the Lord to do those things. However, it's a very solitary thing to do. There's kind of a loneliness about it. And I heard a podcast and I thought, wait, this is doing the things that I already do. I'm analyzing the events of my life. I'm analyzing the events of my friends' lives. They're analyzing the events of my life. We could do this together. And so in that way, it kind of feels like this very autobiographical way to write out loud, except I'm doing it with friends and I'm doing it out loud. And so it's just this, this very teamwork type of thing that I just dig. I've always felt like my biggest talent are my friendships. It's not necessarily writing, it's not necessarily speaking, but it's my friendships. It's the women that I surround myself with. And so I get to shine a light on them, and we get to, put this little collection together of living life deeply.
Yeah, it really is a collection. We'll get more into like what the podcast looks like here in a second. But the thing that really draws me into the podcast is your relationships. Because you have, like, I have deep relationships with a few people.
Sure.
And then like friends with a bunch. You have these deep relationships with so many people from throughout your life. Maybe it's because you're 40 and older than me. But I'm just going to keep throwing that out just until I get slapped.
Well, I've embraced it, so you can throw it out all you want.
I know, which is actually, we're going to talk about it at the end, but that's actually what you talk about in episode 1 of season 2 of the podcast, which released today. So
check it out.
One of the reasons we have you on today. We want people to go not only support the first season, but you're coming out weekly from here on out.
Here we go.
Season 2, so it's exciting.
Got intense. We took a little break because we had to bring our baby home from China. So our family was in transition. We took a little break for that, but now we're back at it.
Yeah, so you brought it up. So now I think we kind of have to talk about it.
We can.
Whenever you came on the first time, we talked about like the crazy story of you being like anti-Catholic. You're like, Catholics are weird, because you grew up as a Protestant, and then this crazy story of you moving to like Asia and then meeting this Catholic guy, and then y'all got married. Like your life doesn't make sense, and it's exciting, like all at the same time.
Nice,
right?
yes,
So,
good.
So there's a new.
I like complicated.
Yeah,
I've never backed away from complicated.
You can tell. Anybody that has ever met you or that has ever listened to your podcast knows that you like
I'm
complicated.
so complimented right now, Taylor. Thank you.
the oddest compliment that I think I didn't mean it as a compliment, but it was taken as one. Whatever.
I'm complicated.
So, yeah, you definitely are. So, yeah, tell us just real briefly, what is this big news, this big change that y'all have had in your lives the last few
Right.
months?
So we just brought home our son, Emmanuel. We felt a call to adopt, and we were told that we would never have kids, and then we had 4 in rapid succession. And so this just felt like a beautiful way to say thank you. And so he is 3, and he just got home 4 months ago, and he is a honey.
Yeah, he's super cute.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually sitting outside, and was,
Yes.
right before we went on the air, was looking in through the window, trying to figure
Yes.
out, like, what is she doing?
And
You know?
we have just had a very smooth transition. Our family has I was praying about, are my kids going to have these complicated emotions? And no such thing so far. I'm not naive to think that this could get harder later, but I was worried about his grief. I was worried about, my kids feeling resentment that, doctor's appointments or whatever might take over our lives. And that just has not been the case. So all the things that we thought to pray for have really gone well.
Well, good. I'm glad it's going well. Our family has enjoyed meeting your new one.
We have
It's
felt
been-
very loved and supported.
It's been a lot of fun. So here let's get back to the podcast. So
Okay.
we were talking about the relationships that you have, like the
Yes.
depths of these relationships
I
with all
love
these
women.
Yeah, all these
I
women
love
that
women.
like. So you bring on multiple different women
Mhm.
throughout
Mhm.
throughout the podcast. So like, what is the format of the podcast? Let's go into that first.
Well, just real quick. So I love women. I mean, so much so that I could burst into tears right this minute. It's through my friendships.
Don't do that. It's not good radio.
We're stretching your limits, remember, Taylor? I
Yeah,
might cry.
no,
Okay.
we're not going that far. We're not stretching that much.
So, but I really, really, it's through my friendships that I really experience the Lord the most closely. It's how he instructs me and rebukes me. It's just a very sweet thing, and every bit about it is so kind. I just really see the kindness of the Lord through my friends, and so sometimes the conversations are slow and steady and methodical, and then other times they're rowdy and fun, and sometimes they're dramatic and intense, and sometimes they're just painful, but in every instance they're vulnerable. So I love the different women that we have on. But to answer your question, how it's broken up, so the first part of it is like a little 10-minute sermon from me. And then the next part of it is...
This girl can preach, man. I love it. I love it. She can preach.
Thank you, Taylor. And then the next part is an interview. And then there's, we answer a listener's question. And then after that, I will read, I have this dear friend who's just precious, and she wins the internet like day after day. And so she'll read a post of hers. And then I teach at the prison. And so they journal for me. And it's the most heart-wrenching thing. I mean, it's crushingly beautiful. And so I will share something that they've written.
Yeah, some of those, man, like those will get me. Where it's
Isn't
just
it
like
amazing?
These women who are hurting, who
Yeah.
have hurt. They've been hurt. They have hurt people,
Mhm.
and they're just so honest.
Yes.
Like they're not hiding
Yes.
anything. They're not hiding anything. Not holding anything back. And then these conversations that you have. The one episode that like really won me over was when you had on one of your best friends from college, Miss Regetz, right?
Yes.
And y'all were talking about like dealing with loss and the pain of loss
Yeah.
and everything that the Regetz family has gone through. We have had Matt on the show
Yes.
way back in the
Mhm.
day too,
Mhm.
and I actually just got to meet. I texted you 2 weeks ago. I
Yeah.
just got
Yeah.
to meet her
Yeah.
in person for the first time and like talk. I mean, they talk about how they lost children,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
just the pain
Grief.
of that,
Mhm.
the grief that like she walked through
Mhm.
and still latched onto the Lord with,
Mhm.
but still like it wasn't just this like
Mhm.
fluffy, like, oh yeah, God's
No.
gonna take care of it, like real heartache and real tough
Yeah.
stuff. And
that's
like,
the thing about the podcast that I love is I feel like we only hear from Christians who are living this life exactly right. Like we're only hearing from people who've got this discipleship thing down. And I love having people on and getting into the real aspects of life. We're not perfect people, and we're finding our way, but in every way they're honest when they come on. And she is certainly that.
yeah, she absolutely is. She's awesome. So you talked about like not being perfect. So
Mhm.
let's talk about the name. So why
Yes.
sinner, saint, sister?
You
Obviously, we
know-
talked about the sister part, but why
Yeah.
sinner and saint? Why are those two words so important to you?
So what happened is I went to a women's conference And it was a very sweet time, and the women were sweet and the songs were sweet. And I walked around this conference hoping that something of their sweetness would rub off on me. And I left, and I couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but I left feeling I felt irritable, and I couldn't figure out why. And as I wrestled with it, I realized that I they were telling me I was beautiful. They were telling me I was cherished and chosen. And I agreed with those things. I knew that those things were true, but I felt like at this conference, I was only given half of a story. And I get it. I get why we want to avoid the other half of the story. But the other half of the story is that, you know what? I'm not just cherished and chosen. Yes, those things are true, but I am also a sinner. And my sins aren't even really that unique. I mean, fear and idolatry and insecurity. And so I really wanted to tackle the whole story. That yes, I am cherished and chosen, and I am a daughter of a king, but I am also a filthy, rag-waving sinner that will never be worthy of a kingdom. And our life is about living in that tension between these two truths. And I feel like when we can calmly accept both, that's where transformation happens. And transformation requires the whole truth. And so I wanted to talk about, this sinner. I wanted to talk about this saint, and I wanted to do it with my sisters. And so this podcast, this title, it just seemed to wrap it all up for me in a way that led to transformation.
Didn't I tell you guys she could preach? Didn't I tell you that? She's preaching up a storm, man. And
well, I just think we have a tendency to tease the humanity out of things. It's kind of like Peter not extending his foot, right? It's like, that's just a little much, Lord. I mean, let's be honest. But there's something about me and my personality where I just kind of want to dive into the weird. I want to dive into the gross. And I want to reject anything that seeks to put a cap on humanity. And so my goal for this podcast is, you know what? It might be ugly. It might be strange. It might be awkward, but we're all experiencing it, whether we're talking about it or not. So let's just get it out there and realize we belong to each other in a more tangible way.
Right. And it's one of the things that you're talking about this juxtaposition, like it has always bothered me. And I've talked about this multiple times in people that know me know this is one of my biggest pet peeves is within the church, like how we talk about marriage to people who aren't married. It's like, oh yeah, marriage is a sacrament and it's beautiful and it's awesome, which it is. It's all of those things. But then you hear that and then you get married and your first 6 months, 3 months, 10 months of, a year of marriage, you're like, there's this whole other side of it that's ugly and nasty and hard, and I have to improve myself, and she needs to improve herself, and we need to work. And like, there's that realness that like it's always both, right? Like this is a struggle because we're imperfect humans, and this is beautiful, and this sacrament is what's going to ultimately get us through it. And like, you are honest with your struggles in this thing. Like on our staff at Ablaze, like I know like there are young women that just look up to you like crazy. I look up to your husband like crazy. And it's like, I look at your family and it's like, that's the kind of husband and father I want to be. I know that women look up to you. But then to hear, like I'm in a Bible study with your husband, to hear his struggles, to hear your struggles on the podcast, it's like, oh, they are both. Yes. They are both someone to look up to and to strive to be like, but also hurt and broken and needing of a savior. And like, that's Christianity.
Dust and divine. And when we can calmly accept both, I feel like we can rest under this tender gaze of a father that loves us just as we are. And when we can do that, we can get rid of the thought that tells us that we ought to be somebody different. And that's when I feel like the real change, the real things happen. By the way, this is probably another episode, but talk about how people talk to married people. I have so I'm not posting much about adoption because I haven't figured out how to tell the whole story, and it doesn't seem right or fair to tell half of a story. I could very easily, kind of put this Instagram filter on adoption and make it look very beautiful because we have the most beautiful moments in our home. But because there is another half and I haven't figured out how to talk about it publicly yet, I'm just not posting much. So I think that you could take any instance of life and apply that concept that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I love this trueness within you, where you're like, this is who I am, this is what I want to portray. Yeah. If I can't do that yet with this situation, I'm not going to.
You're right.
Because of the same reasons what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So to kind of wrap up our conversation, what has been your favorite moment of doing season 1 of the podcast?
Okay. Gosh, that's hard. My favorite
or favorite thing that came out of it.
Right. Well, I can't pick a favorite episode. I mean, that's like asking me to pick a favorite baby. You know, I can't. I mean, what are you, a monster? I can't do that.
I mean, I've talked about it before. I can, but
You can?
You don't have to. Oh, yeah. I think dads can. Moms struggle with it more, but like I think we all have a favorite kid.
Taylor.
It can change. All right, come on. We
anyways,
gotta wrap this up.
yeah. So, I guess my favorite moment is that I feel like in the feedback that I get that I love is that people will contact me and say, I laughed and I cried all in the same hour. And so you can walk away from an hour feeling like you just lived all of life in this 1 hour, the highs, the lows, the ups and the downs and the spaces in between. So that's just fun feedback for me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Guys, go check out her podcast, Sinner Saint Sister, wherever you find your podcast, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever. It is
you,
fantastic.
Taylor. This flew by.
Yeah, it really did. That's because you're awesome. You're great. All right, guys, we will be right back for our final segment of Forte Catholic for the day. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. We are recording in the Red Sea Radio Intergalactic Studios. Man, what a show with the guests of the Sullivan family. It was a family affair. They were all here, either in the studio with Allison last segment talking about her podcast and how awesome it is. Go check it out, Sinner Saint Sister, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's one of the ones that I listen to all the time. And then the first segment was just a doozy, man. Those third graders just wore me out. They were so much fun, weren't they? Cute little kids, and it was just a grand old time with them yelling and spiking the microphones. It was just tremendous radio. So, during the break, we're in the season of Lent, right? And I kind of yelled out at Sam in the first segment because in the midst of me talking about Lent and sacrifice, I look over and Sam's just chomping down on this cinnamon cake. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? But to be fair, at the beginning of the show, but before we started, she said, hey, look, I brought 2 of these so that me, you, and Mackenzie, between the 3 of us, we can all have some bundt cake. I was like, this is going to be great, right? So she shows it to me. I was like, I'll eat it later. And I'm sitting here making fun of her in Lent, not being sacrificial. And then the Sullivans, we do the first 2 segments, then they leave. And then, we sit down, I'm, looking over my notes for this segment. And Sam says, here's the cupcake. I was like, okay, cool. I'll just have, my plan, I absolutely promise you, my plan was to have 1 bite, maybe 2, take a swig of water, and let's get the show on the road, right? Sam, you got your mic ready over there? Why don't you tell the good people what actually happened in this scenario? Oh,
what actually happened? There we go. Sorry, other people controlling things in here. Was that you ate the whole thing?
Yeah, I did. So not only did I eat the whole thing, we were ready to start recording, and I was like, oh, I'm halfway done with this thing. I know, to be a good person, I should stop and I should do the segment and then I should finish the rest later. But I'm not strong enough. So I ate the whole thing and it was fantastic. Really good, by the way. Random plug for a Nothing Bundt Cake here locally in town. That was one of the best, or it's absolutely the best cupcake bundt cake I've ever had. But it's one of the best desserts I've ever had. Oh, man. There's this chocolate chip cake with this cream filling. I'm really making angry the people who gave up sweets for Lent right now, so I'm going to move on. Last week on the show, I was talking about answered prayer and how, there was this awesome time. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago now that I went to Oklahoma City, and we did this whole, night of prayer. And God, for the first time in a really long time, I was in this kind of, dry period where it was, nothing was going wrong with my faith. like my prayer life was there, and I was, I work for the church. I'm around the church. I was praying. I was studying the Bible, all this kind of stuff. Like things were going well. I just didn't feel like this, deep love connection, right, with God. And then I had this awesome, amazing answered prayer where essentially this lady was like you're in this situation where it's like Noah's Ark, where or at the end of Noah's Ark, when Noah is like putting out the birds to go like try to find signs that the waters have receded. And then finally he gets this dove where it's like, look, the waters are receding, which essentially told me like there is hope on the horizon, right? Like you're still like in this hard time, but there's hope on the horizon and things are going to get better. Like just keep pushing through. I was like, man, that's a great, awesome answered prayer. And like, I was in a good place spiritually. And then Lent happened, right? Lent, which is so interesting because it's this season where we talk about it being like this desert season, right? It's this time of preparation for Easter. It's this time for us to kind of renew and to refocus and revamp our life with Christ. The church has it set up for us where it's like, hey, like you're probably not living completely for God. So like give something up or do something, like add some prayer to your life, whatever you want to do there. But it's really about prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, like preparing ourselves to celebrate Holy Week of like God giving us the Eucharist on Thursday, of his passion and death for us on Friday, and his resurrection for us on Sunday. Like that's what we're preparing our hearts for, right? Well, man, I just want to kind of open up and be real for a bit because, not that I'm fake other times, but like just some real deep things that have been going on in me in the last week. Because right after this time of this big answered prayer, like God speaking to me for the first time, it feels like in a really long time, last week was one of the roughest weeks that I've had just like as a person, like in my faith in a really long time. Like it was a tough week. I first of all, I got sick. Like that's, like if you listen to the show if you listen to the show at all today, like you could tell like my voice still isn't there. I'm coughing. I'm having to like pause to use the cough button like this so that I can cough. And it's not like, immediately in your ears. It's just this awkward pause for you. But I got sick and I've had, I've kind of had some health issues where like I need to, go see some doctors, get blood work done. I hate getting blood work done, man. I'm going to pass out on these little nurses. I promise. But I got a sinus infection and it was kind of like a cold that turned into sinus infection. Like I might even had some like flu type stuff, right? Like where I was getting fever and like I just had I just all stopped up and definitely had a sinus infection and was like just laying in bed. Like I had energy for nothing. I went to work for like a half a day one day. I was literally driving to work one day for a meeting and I texted him and I was like, yeah, I'm going back home. Like I'm not coming. Like I'm about to pass out. I had lunch on Wednesday with Sam, our producer, and like literally thought I was going to pass out in the restaurant at the end. I was like, oh, I need to go home. Like we got to get out of here. But not only was I sick, like if you've listened to the show before, you know that I'm not good at suffering, which is why I'm in the religion, Catholicism, that does suffering the best because I need to grow in that area. But not only that was I sick and just kind of laying around, which, comes with like some isolation, right? Like I'm sick. I don't want to get other people sick. So I'm not like around work. I'm not around my friends. I'm not really around my family, even though they're at home, because I'm trying not to get my babies or my wife sick, right? So there is a lot of this like isolation where like I'm just laying in bed like all day watching Netflix. So the beginning of the week was actually kind of fine, right? I'm watching Daredevil, season 2, everybody's favorite Catholic superhero. Then I watch Jessica Jones. And then I get to this point where other things start happening, right? Like one of my friends is really struggling. I'm trying to walk with him. I'm praying for him and like just like some hard stuff. And then at work, like at like my day job, right? I run our events division. And we had this event that I've been working on for months that just had like so little like registration, right? So we had to cancel the event. And this was like an event that I've been in charge of for years, and it just didn't go well. So I'm sitting here feeling like a failure, feeling like everything's messing up. And I'm sick, and I just get into this weird fog and this weird headspace where like totally start like just like if you haven't noticed, I'm a really positive person. Like I'm always kind of like, oh yeah, let's keep it light, let's make Catholicism fun again, let's smile. Like that's how I get through things. But man, like my headspace, like I was just like Satan was just feeding me all these lies that I was just completely believing. Like you're a failure, everything you touch fails. Like look at all the things going wrong. Like look at all the things that are stressing you out at work. Look at all the things that are stressing you out at home. Look at all the things that are stressing you out with your friends. It's like nothing is going right. Like this is what I'm thinking, right? And then I'm isolated, and I'm like, I'm sick, probably because I'm out of shape. But I'm sick, so I can't go work out, so I can't get into shape, and like I just felt kind of like helpless, right? Like all these things that led to this scenario, I couldn't do anything about them, right? So then I'm having this whole just kind of like, and I'm not like throwing myself a pity party or anything, right? Like I'm in this situation, I know I'm in this fog where it's like, this isn't true. Like I know things are kind of struggling, things aren't going well right now, but this isn't what's true, right? But because I wasn't really talking to anybody, like I couldn't get out of it. And there was a point on Thursday, no, it was Friday, where like I had watched 2 whole seasons of Netflix shows like throughout the week, where like I was looking at Netflix, I was like, I don't want to play a video game on my iPad, like I'm scrolling through Netflix, like I don't want to watch anything. Like I'm like, maybe I should pray, and I was like, I don't have the energy, or like I had a headache, like I don't want to pray. I go over to my Xbox. I'm not even lying, I opened up 5 different games and played 5 different games for like 5 minutes, and I was just like bored. I just like nothing was satisfying me, right? Nothing was satisfying me. And it was just kind of this hard place to be in that I was in for like 3 or 4 days, where I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what is happening? And I can't figure it out. And then like I start kind of getting out of like during that time I knew like this isn't me, like this isn't right. Like I'm going to get better, like things are going to get better, right? So then Saturday I'm starting to kind of feel better. And like just physically feel better. I'm finally beating this sinus infection with the help of good old Mucinex, right? Just like pumping myself with medicine and vitamins, and like my wife's like pouring essential oils over me. I feel like I'm being like ordained for the priesthood or something. I have so much oil on me. And my wife and I, since our baby was born, 4-month-old Felicity, we've had a couple of dates where it's like me, Sam, and Felicity, right? Just kind of have to whenever you have a new baby around. Her parents came into town to help us out. Like we were supposed to have, like they were going to come in and we were going to have like a date like every day, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, Friday, I wasn't feeling good, so we didn't go out. Saturday, I was like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to see Black Panther. And this is going to be our first date without the baby. Like Sam like had bottles set up for the baby. You know, it's like this is our chance, right? To go out 2.5 hours, just her and I, which hasn't happened since the baby was born. And we get in the car to drive to the movie. My car is like running super weird, like to where like I'm pushing on the gas and like we're not going, and I'm like, oh no, right? If you're a regular listener to the show, you know that about 3 or 4 months ago, in this car, while I was in Brenham, 45 minutes away, the transmission blew out. And, you know, I had to drive back to Bryan at 20 miles an hour because that's as fast as the car could go, like pedal to the metal, 20 miles an hour. Ended up costing like $1,200, which like I work for the church. Like I don't just have $1,200 just sitting around to throw into a transmission, right? So immediately, right as I'm like kind of getting out of this fog, like let's go have some fun, spend some time with my wife, like this will be good, right? Immediately, just more stress. I'm like, my transmission is going out again. It's going out again. I just knew it, right? We drive to the movie theater. I only go up to like 50 miles an hour, like on the highway, because it's like that bad, right? She's like, should we go home? And I was like, no. Like, I need to get out. I need to spend time with you. I need to go have some fun. I need to get out of the house. So she's like, okay. So we go, we watch Black Panther, and I'm woefully disappointed. Like, I enjoyed the movie, but like, just for me, it like didn't live up to the hype. So again, it was another thing where I'm just like, I'm bored, right? Like, it's things that are supposed to be excited, and I'm bored, I'm stressed out. And then like halfway through the movie, like Sam's parents, God bless them, like they came in to help us out, right? But Felicity, like we haven't been away from Felicity yet. So they're texting us throughout the whole, like the second half of the movie. Like Felicity's crying. She's not taking the bottle. She's crying. So we're watching this movie, trying to spend time together, and just more stress added onto the plate. It's like, we need to come home. I was like, I'm not going home. There's like 30 minutes left in the movie. Like, I'm not going to pay again to watch the last 30 minutes of Black Panther, So anyway, it was all stressful. Like, it ended up being fine. Like, they got the baby calmed down. We ended up, going home, and it was fun. It was just like so stressful, right? And why do I even bring this up? One, I mean, I'm human and life sucks. And sometimes being Catholic's hard, man. Living a life for God is hard. Like, finding the peace and love and joy and all these things that Catholicism does bring, there are still going to be days where it is a desert for you. There are going to be days where it is dry, days where you are feeling hurt, days where you're feeling tempted. And here's the deal. We always talk about the desert, and it's this story that you and I have all heard a dozen times, especially around Lent, where Jesus goes into the desert for 40 days, right? Like, that's where we get this whole Lenten thing. And here's kind of a new, at least it was new for me, kind of a new meditation on this story. So here it is. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Like, that's the first biggest point. Like, God led him into this desert, led him into this time that knew was going to be a struggle, right? But like, God is like always with us and always leading us. Like, his Spirit didn't just leave at this moment. Just like this time, why did Jesus go? He went to go pray. He went to go be with his Father. And like, that's what Lent is for. It's this time to relook at your life and say, okay, in the best times and in the worst times, in the biggest funk, in the biggest fog that you're in, just like I was in last week and like still climbing out of with God's help. Like, that's what this season is for. This time to refocus on God through this prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. So he was tempted by the devil. He ate, this is one of my favorite lines in the Bible. He ate nothing during these 40 days, and at the end he was hungry. It's like, thanks, Bible. Like, I can assume that, right? Like, of course he was hungry, right? So, but like, here's the deal. Like, he had need. He had a physical need, just like I had a physical need last week. I was sick. I needed connection. I needed to be well. I needed all like these things, like to believe in myself again. Like, I needed all these things. And that's the desert. And Satan in those moments is going to come and swirl these lies at you, just like he did to me last week. Like, you're not good enough. You're failing. You're messing these things up. And Satan comes at him with all these different temptations. It's like, hey, look, turn the stone into bread. That's this physicalness, right? Like, you just take care of yourself. Like, don't worry about the spiritual. Just worry about the physical. And then Jesus answers with scripture, answers with truth. The devil comes up and says, I'll give you authority. I'll give you power. This allure of like money and riches. And Jesus says, no, like, I know the truth. The answers with scripture. So this Lent, I hope it's a time for you to get into the word, return to the Lord, and man, just walk this journey here with me. We'll be back next week. We didn't have enough time to get to Father Jared Cook this week. Hopefully next week. See ya! Hey, it's Taylor. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, I'd humbly like to ask for you to do one of two things. Either share this with your friends that you think would enjoy it as well, or head on over to iTunes and leave a rating for us. It helps more people find the show. Thanks a lot, and God bless.